This video is on the histology for the female reproductive system. Now, this is an ovary, and we're interested in the follicles. The follicles are comprised of an oocyte. There's the oocyte right there, and the supporting cells around it. So this follicle is surrounded by simple scomosal. So there's a nucleus, there's a nucleus. You can't really see them. Now, there's different kinds of follicles. There are primordial follicles, which are these ones surrounded by simple scomosal. There are primary follicles, where it's surrounded by simple cuboidal. Look how big that oocyte has become. That is the oocyte right there. And that's a late primary follicle. A secondary follicle, which has a nice antrum. And then a tertiary, or a vesicular follicle. This one has a well-developed antrum, where this secondary is just starting to develop. A well-developed corona radiata. And the big difference is this is a primary oocyte. This is a secondary oocyte. And I took embryology, and it was a lot of fun trying to figure out if something was a late secondary or an early tertiary. I will not make you do that, I promise. So you're going to be going to the Histology Guide website again. And what you're going to do is you're going to look at the follicles. Now, I could just zoom in. I know the primordial follicles are right there. However, I could also click on the picture on the right-hand side of the screen to go there. So, if I click primordial follicle, it's going to zoom in on these beautiful primordial follicle. That's basically an oocyte and simple scomosal epithelium. Then if I want to go to a primary follicle, I can have lots of choices here. And it's going to take me to a primary follicle. I like this one a lot better because you can see is cuboidal epithelial. And this one looks like it is still simple cuboidal epithelial. And then the secondary follicle is going to be over here. So I can just use this to go back and forth. That's what I want you to hunt for, is the follicles. Now let's look at what these follicles actually are, though. So this is with an oil immersion lens to show you the primordial follicle. We have an oocyte, and then I have this layer of simple scomosal epithelial around it. And these are always found in the very outer part of the cortex, so this is actually the cuticle surrounding the ovary. And there's a simple scomosal cell, there's a simple scomosal cell, ooh, there's a simple scomosal cell. So they're very, very small and undeveloped. They're basically waiting to be stimulated by follicle-stimulating hormone. So this is a primary follicle, and it's not the best example. Again, I'm using the oil immersion lens. But I have my oocyte, and it's surrounded by stacked epithelial. So this one is probably a later one, so it looks like it is stratified columnar. But let's get a better view of this. This slide actually sort of looks like Starry Night, but we can see our oocyte here. And in this one, I can see, yes, I have cuboidal epithelial. And this is an early one right here because it's simple cuboidal. It's eventually going to become stratified cuboidal. So here's a pair of them right next to each other. Again, simple cuboidal on those. And these would be late, right? This one and this one. And I know they're still primary follicles because there's no antrum. See up here, I have an antrum. This I would not give you on the histology slide. My guess is it is a secondary that looks like an antrum. It's just the top of the follicle. So this is the slide that I actually think is in your book. So these are the primordial. This is a late primary, I think. And this is an early primary. Then this is probably vesicular. See, we have the edge of our follicle, and then we have this fluid. That fluid is called an antrum. It is telling you it's either a secondary or a vesicular follicle. And for this class, I don't make the difference. So this is an early secondary follicle. I have my antrum, that's the fluid. I'm just starting to develop the corona radiata. That's a layer of cuboidal epithelial that surrounds my oocyte. Then I have another layer of cuboidal epithelial following the outside of the follicle. And here it's actually stratified. It should be stratified all the way around, but it just isn't in how they took this picture. It's eventually going to develop into this. So see here we have a nice, well-developed corona radiata around the oocyte. We have a nice developed antrum, and a nice developed outer follicle. And if I were to guess, this is probably actually a tertiary follicle, but because it's really hard to tell the secondary from tertiary vesicular follicles, we're going to call it a secondary follicle. So see here, we have our corona radiata around our oocyte. There's the outside, so this would be an early secondary follicle, where if I go toward the tertiary follicle, the antrum is a lot bigger. See, there's not even the cell in there. Again, I'm not going to hold you accountable for that one. So I want to show you a corpus luteum. I do not think this is a human corpus luteum. Here's our tertiary vesicular follicle. It's about ready to ovulate. Now we have these masses that are left over after ovulation. This is the corpus luteum. Look how big it's become. This is making a ton of progesterone, and that's going to maintain the endometrium, or my endometrium lining of the uterus. These, if I were to guess, are corpus albicanes. They are smaller and it's scar tissue. Unfortunately, this has been stained, so we do not have the nice white for the corpus albicane and the nice yellow for the corpus luteum. So that is the reproductive system histology for the female reproductive